Greetings commanders and welcome back to another Warpath video. In this video we have another unit highlight for you. We have the P1500 Monster. The name itself is scary, but the tank is even scarier. Trust me guys, this super heavy tank over here can take on a mountain. It is so tanky and it deals a lot of damage. And in this video, we're not gonna be only just highlighting its attributes, but we're also gonna be combat testing it against other maxed out units that we see right now in the game. Just a quick disclaimer, this is a test server. As you can see, I have 2.5 billion gold, which is kind of unrealistic. So this is just a test server, not live. We can max out units as much as we can. But if you wanna see more of these videos where we test out units, you guys have requested a lot of these. So hey, it does take us a lot of time to actually do one of these videos because it takes so much time to do all these different combinations of testing, and it could take up to hours to do them. So hey, if you appreciate these videos, maybe throw us a like down there and consider subscribing to the channel. It would definitely mean the world to me. Thank you so much. Let's get right into this. Okay, when it comes to super heavy tanks, we have this over here. This tank over here is, when it's maxed out, one of the strongest and most toughest tanks to take down in a fight in Warpath. This tank overall performance is really good. It has an extremely tremendous firepower. Its firing rate is actually very OP. It's 3.88 seconds per shot, meaning that it fires as fast as a main battle tank, which is kind of weird. To be fairly honest with you guys, I would definitely play around with the fire rate of this tank because it does so much damage. That is 640k damage compared to 210 damage over here. So it does like 3 times the damage with the same interval of time, which is kind of unrealistically strong. We can see that from the firepower, obviously. It has a very high hit rate, which is 87.33%. I would definitely play around with the hit rate as well if you were to balance this tank out. But also, it has a tremendous amount of HP. Let alone the HP itself is not really that much, but because it has so much sloped armor, the majority of the tanks that are out there cannot even come close to piercing this tank. As you can see, all the pen depths that we are looking at, only the heli has a very close pen depth to kind of get around the armor that is the sloped armor over here. So there's a very slight chance where the helicopter is able to actually pierce this tank. But then overall, it's not really that much. So overall talking, not many tanks can actually pierce this tank unless we're talking about the ATG. The ATG is definitely one of the most badass tanks that can actually pierce this tank and deal so much damage to it. But when it comes to other tanks, especially helis, this is probably the only tank that can actually get close to piercing it, but not that much. But however, it has a very high pen depth, which means that it can actually pierce other tanks, such as main battle tanks and others as well, such as helis. So it does definitely deal a lot of damage to other tanks as well. So this tank overall is very good. The only downside about this tank when it comes to field fighting is its trip speed. It is extremely slow, and it takes up to 12 personnel per tank. So you can, when you have maxed out barracks, you can only display 8 after these tanks. So as you can see over here, we have only literally 8. That's about it. So overall, this tank is a beast when it comes to performance, when it comes to tanking, when it comes to base versus base or tanking up a base for you to actually take it down. This is definitely the tank that you want to use. You're going to be using for that. It definitely outperforms main battle tanks when it comes to tanking, and overall it just does a really good job. When it comes to field fighting, it's very hard to chase any other tanks. So theoretically speaking, what we're going to be doing right now is actually one-on-one combat, which usually doesn't happen in a field fight unless the enemy is kind of AFK or there's a massive fight and they're not actually taking attention that one of these tanks is fighting their tank. This case is kind of a little bit rare. It's not the normal case that happens on a battlefield. Usually when someone is taking this tank is beating the shit out of them, they would just run. But overall, this performance of this tank, we're going to show you exactly how it performs when it's head-to-head against other tanks, just to give you an idea of how tough this tank is. It's an absolute beast. For testing today, we're going to be testing it out against different tanks. So we're going to start off with one of these guys versus helicopters, which is a maxed out heli. As you can see over here, this is maxed out Vanguard's heli, super strong. And then we also have a maxed out Leopard that is actually not on this account, but on the other one, which is we're testing it right now, as you can see right over here. So these two tanks, these are the behemoths. Right now, we're going to be testing out with a maxed out heli and a maxed out Leopard. 1v1, 1v1 over here. And we're going to see how these tanks actually perform. These tanks are super strong, and they will definitely perform a very high. So for officers, we're going with Guardian of Truth and Darth Vader, or whatever the name is. I completely forgot his name. Always forgetting secondary officers' names. But these two officers, the reason why we went for these is because we wanted to increase the pen damage or the pen depth actually, because these officers will definitely help out increase this pen depth over here, so that we would probably be able to pen this more. But for the officers that we went for on this, which you should definitely go for, these two officers over here are the best for this. We went for these combinations over here, as you can see right in front of you. So definitely this is going to be super interesting. That is the first test. The second test, we're going to actually be testing this against the Howitzer and against an ATG, where the Howitzers and ATGs shoot first. So we're going to let the ATG shoot first, and then we're going to be actually attacking it to see what a real kind of battle scenario would go if the ATG actually started targeting a super heavy, and then the super heavy looked at it and, hey, you're targeting me, now I'm going to attack you, which is usually the case in a battlefield. So first of all, let's go ahead and start this combat over here. Let's go and start this one and this one. As you can see right now, right off the bat, we have a very high damage coming in from the heli right over in this section. They're actually dealing some solid damage, but when the shield comes down, this is where things get interesting. That shield over there takes on so much damage, and the heli is actually doing a really good job, to be honest with you guys. I didn't expect the heli to do that much of a good job, but it's definitely being buffed even more right now. So at the last set I've actually tried this, the helis did get their butts kicked from the super heavies over here. But it's very interesting to see that this combo is actually very effective against super heavies. So I thought that the super heavies would actually get the upper hand in this specific fight over here, but they didn't. When it comes to the mediums or main battle tanks, they're getting their butts kicked, basically. That's what's going on. But here it's actually very close. And there's some slight advantage to the helis that you can see over here. So this is very interesting that the helis actually won that, so that makes them even more OP, and that actually gives it more of the fact that we're going to be doing a helicopters test run. We're going to be testing these units against literally every other unit just to show you guys how OP the helicopters are. I thought they're going to be losing this fight head to head versus the super heavy because the super heavy is just super strong, but apparently they aren't. Apparently the helicopters are just very good. As you can see, we still have 11 helicopters right now, and just a quick show you just the stats of these helicopters. This is what we're looking for right now. So 6.5 million in terms of the stats of the helicopters, which is extremely strong, and overall the super heavy would outperform them, but I think the fire rate of these guys is very high. Let's take a look at the fire rate. It's actually exactly the same as the super heavy, but they have higher hit rate, and apparently they are actually piercing. As you can see, this, when it comes to the red button over here, that means they're piercing their enemies at a very high rate. When it comes over here, these super heavies didn't even take a flinch. They actually took some damage at the beginning, but now they're healing it off with the officers' basically skills. And right over here, as you can see, this is basically the healing that is actually happening on this section over here. It's super strong, but there's a lot of piercing damage. You saw that over there. That's the piercing damage that is happening to the super heavies. And when that specific icon, that is actually, let me just zoom that and just show you this icon over here, that means that tank got pierced. So the helis are actually really dealing a lot of damage at piercing those super heavies, and the reason for that is because of the officer selection that we have done over here. These officers apparently work really well with helicopters. We're going to be testing out different combos of officers with helis, but we'll leave that for different videos because that takes just a lot of time to test out so many officers and different scenarios. You know how it goes with these officers. There's a lot of factors involved when it comes to testing officers. But as we can see, the helis are outperforming the super heavies, but the super heavies are absolutely kicking butts when it comes to main battle tanks. Of course, we're not going to be even testing it out with howitzers or even light tanks or these ones over here, rocket launchers. The reason for that is because we know that howitzers and rocket launchers do not deal that much damage. As you can see, this is a rocket launcher, and that is basically there's literally no pen happening over there. So when there's no pen, that means they're gonna be definitely losing. And the main battle tank is already out of the game. As you can see, super fresh, super heavy, 0 damage taken. That is extremely strong. But when it comes to over here, the super heavy actually lost, but it did deal a fair amount to the helicopters. I haven't seen actually any other tank deal that much damage to a helicopter, even when comparing it to light tanks or any other tanks. But it's always fun to see helicopters against other tanks. So super heavies and helicopters would deal definitely a lot of damage to each other. And as you can see, we almost took down the helicopter over here. It still has like, I would say like 40% of its HP. But hey, it was definitely a good fight over here, and it lasted for a long time. So let's go ahead now and test this same combo versus an ATG and howitzer, just to show you why the howitzers aren't really a good match. By the way, I've just realized that I've actually been hiding the attributes section. So just a quick view about the attributes section. You have the firepower over here, pen depth. These are the numbers for a maxed out unit over here, just for you guys to check them out. Of course, you can see these exact same numbers if you go to your base basically, and then go to manual, these units over here, and then you go to, for example, just Vanguard units, super heavies, then go all the way here, and then you can see the max stats, right? But of course you can't see those depending on your research. It depends on multiple things, but you can take a guess of what these max stats actually look like without me actually showing you these actual max stats in combat. But hey, it's always good to see that, and apologies for that. I would definitely be filming whenever I'm doing officer or like units videos. I'm gonna be filming myself to the left side, as you can see right now over here. So this is exactly what I'm going to be doing right now for you guys. Now we're just waiting for these guys to be absolutely done. And what we're going to do right now, this test is going to be, we have Shevchenko and Saber of the Nation on both a maxed out howitzer and a maxed out ATG, right? And if we were to compare the status of these, so this is what a maxed out ATG looks like. Let me just max it out quickly. This and this and this, and there's another one. That's it. That's a 122k power maxed out ATG. So as you can see, this is the firepower of a maxed out ATG. This is the HP. It's super squishy. It probably would be taking out by 2 hits of that, but it has an extremely high pen depth, right? The pen depth is extremely high, so that means it will be able to deal a lot of damage theoretically to a super heavy tank. But what happens if a super heavy tank catches up to it and actually screws it up? Because the super heavy tank is actually faster. This is 17 kilometers per hour, and the super heavy tank is 27 kilometers per hour, meaning that it could definitely catch up to one of these tanks over here. And same goes to the howitzer as well. So once these are done right now, once this final tank reaches, we should be able to, technically speaking, reach the maximum power of this, and then we will be able to actually start testing out. So this is basically the howitzer versus the super heavy over here. This is a super heavy that we have, and then we have one more tank that is actually on the way so that we can start testing this out. I'm gonna actually start with firing it up, with firing the howitzer up first in this section. And we're gonna start by firing this up. So once this fires, we're gonna move. Okay, so it starts firing, we detected it, we're gonna be moving. Same goes to the other side. Okay, so as you can see, we're already dealing so much damage. Holy shit, that is so much damage being dealt on this side. Oh my god, guys. Okay, let me show you. The howitzer is actually dealing a very solid amount of damage as well, and we're already taking out the super heavy. Okay, this is basically a max out ATG. That's no joke. That is no joke. Max out ATG is very powerful, but hey, take a look at the howitzer over here. The howitzer is actually dealing a lot of damage, and Saber of the Nation is a strong officer. He's a strong boy. He is dealing a lot of damage with his passive skill, which has been firing up a lot. As you can see, when this guy is maxed out, he just like displays so much, and he activated it once again, and then he's activating it once again right now. And as you can see, that is like 3 times been active in the while Shevchenko only 1 time. But hey, it's super close actually right now. And with the shield that is Steel Fighter is actually displaying, it's kind of giving it more survivability to the super heavy than we've expected to have. But as you can see, it's already at a very low HP right now, so probably the Howitzer will be winning that fight, especially with Saber of the Nation being in the back pocket of that unit over there. It just does so much damage. Saber of the Nation is just so good. But the super heavy, it's still dealing a lot of damage. So when these units are maxed out, the Howitzer did outperform. It did actually a really good job. But remember that what happened over here is usually what happens in the battlefield when you're not vigilant enough. But when you're micromanaging your troops very good, this is not allowed to happen. So that means that the Howitzer took a full 5-second fight before even the super heavy started fighting, which is a case that could happen in the battlefield, but usually it doesn't. But the ATG outperformed the shit out of the super heavy over there, even though the super heavy was actually very close to it, and it did come like very close. But the ATG is super strong. It's insane. It's insane, right? It's literally the solution for super heavies. As you know, other units are really good against super heavies, especially when it comes to helicopters, but super heavies. So what we got from this is that ATGs, helicopters, and sometimes even howitzers deal a really good job against heavies. When it comes to howitzers and helicopters, they take a lot of damage. Almost like about 70% of their HP is gonna be lost. But when it comes to ATGs, they outperform super heavies by so much, meaning that ATGs is the solution for super heavies, even at the late game. So if you have a maxed out ATG, then that's definitely the choice for you guys to actually be able to get some value out of it, you know? Because these maxed out ATGs can definitely take down a super heavy. The only problem with these ATGs is that they can be targeted by theoretically everything else. So that means helicopters, light tanks, and maybe battle tanks can actually take down an ATG fairly easily. But we'll definitely see that in the next video when we do a unit highlight about these ATGs and see if they actually really perform well against other tanks. Maybe they will outperform main battle tanks. I don't know. That one took a super heavy in like 5 seconds, which was completely bonkers. So I don't know if they will outperform other tanks as well like that, or maybe light tanks will be able to just cruise around, deal so much damage before these guys can actually react to it. That was a really nice test to have right over here. Of course, if these tanks were closer, then we'll definitely be seeing a little bit different results. But from what we have seen actually so far, is that super heavies might have won the battle against howitzers, but when it comes to ATGs, they're probably going to be dealing more damage if they were closer, but that doesn't mean they were remotely close to even win the battle. That ATG is like 90% health, and it's super healthy yet, so they're going to be dealing way more damage at longer intervals. I hope you guys did like this video. It took some time to actually do it, and hey, if you appreciate the efforts, I would definitely appreciate a like down there, and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll definitely see you on the next video. Bye bye.